Hello folks, my name is Mark and this is Mark's Movie Reviews. How you guys doing? So I just came back from the new King Kong movie and it's Kong Skull Island, I think is what it is. It's very fresh in my brain. I just got out of the theater, an hour and a half ago. And I gotta say, I was impressed. A lot of reviews I've been reading online and such, didn't really seem to like this movie very much. I disagree. I think it was like, there's a lot of action. It's definitely very enjoyable, the thing is that it's a monster movie, right? And it follows a lot of the same monster movie tropes that you see in any monster movie, right? And, these kinds of movies don't really lend a lot to things like character development, right? Because that's because you're not there to see people, you're there to see monsters, fight and things blowing up and that kind of thing. And this movie delivers a lot. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, be forewarned, there's going to be spoilers in this. I haven't really written anything out for this. I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head because I wanted to give the first impression that I could get, and I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. First off, it looks good. The movie definitely has a look to it. And it kind of feels like something that was made in the 70s. With everything just has that sort of sepia tone. Kind of sort of. The music soundtrack to this movie is fantastic. Black Sabbath, Jefferson Airplane. I mean, there's just a lot of really good songs, and they're used well. In a lot of period pieces like this, sometimes the music can feel like it's just sort of tacked on as an afterthought. Not in this movie. In this movie, everything that they do actually fits pretty good. And one of the things that I liked is that they're not shy with showing the creatures in this movie. So, for example, in the 2014 Godzilla movie, you don't see Godzilla until 45 minutes in, right? This movie, Kong, right off the bat. Opening scene, you get to see him. So they do not, none of this pussyfooting around, and he does get a good reveal as well. So, it's they definitely handle that well. This movie's a monster mash, from start to finish, right? One creature after another. The 2005 Peter Jackson Kong, when they finally get to the island and then shit starts happening, this movie's like that from the very beginning. Shit happens immediately, right? So that's really cool. But, so there are some complaints that I've read online and I've seen in other reviews where, the characters, getting back to that, you don't really get a lot in the way of depth in your characters. I don't know, I disagree with that. I mean, the characters have enough depth for what they are. There's the main characters, at least. You kind of give a shit about them, right? You don't want them to get eaten. The only really character that I was, spoilers by the way, that I was sad, actually died was John Goodman. He doesn't survive, and I kind of wanted him to survive. He actually had a little bit of an arc going in his development, and the other character that stands out is Samuel L. Jackson's character as the, he's essentially the villain in this movie. But, not really so much the villain as he just wants to get revenge for Kong killing his men or whatever. He actually steals the show. And then there's the other guy, the crazy guy. I can't remember the actor's name, but, he's the one shipwrecked dude who's standing there. Not shipwrecked, but the guy who's been stranded on the island and he's crazy. Whatever his name is. That dude rules in this movie. He does really good. And he kind of steals the show, too. And so those are the people you care about. And everybody else, you have, soldiers and shit. And, a few of them get developed here and there and they die and whatever. But that's the thing. It's monster movie rules say that plenty of people have to get killed by the monster, and that's what these guys are there for. Same kind of thing in the, for example, in the 2005 Peter Jackson Kong movie, a bunch of dudes from the ship go off to rescue Andero, and they all get eaten by dinosaurs and shit, and it's well, none of those guys got development either. It's you don't feel bad about them, right? These guys, the characters in this movie get as much development as those characters do. They do a pretty good job of using, of making you care about the ones that count. getting to the real star of the show is Kong, and he's very, very well realized. I think this one, gives the 2005 movie a run for its money as far as effects and that kind of thing goes. They imply that the creature is intelligent in this one, and it's still got the same kind of thing where it's like he's the last one and all that stuff, right? And he's like lonely and blah 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 blah. You don't really get to see his human side as much in this one, but there's a scene where he's like looking in the water and he's looking at his face and he's like and you can tell that he's like sad, and then he like saves the girl from the monster and shit like that, and so you kind of get a little bit of that sense, but it's not the usual kind of love-struck Kong that bonds with a human woman. That doesn't really happen in this movie, and I'm actually glad that it doesn't, because that's been overused in my opinion. The creatures on the island are fucking gnarly. They're a lot different than you would see in any of the other Kong movies, like for example, like a lot of attention was paid to the wildlife in the 2005 Peter Jackson movie. They do some of that here. There's some like weird creatures like these giant water buffaloes and this like sort of log stick bug thing, and that kind of thing. They do a lot of that here, not to the same extent though. It's like it doesn't seem to be as developed as much, but you do get a sense that this island is like a lost world kind of thing. And what I thought was cool is that they weren't really dinosaurs. Like they were giant megafauna, but they're not really dinosaurs so much as they are like just weird creatures, like the log stick bug guy. You see him in the trailer for half a second, like that thing just shows up and it's just like like, whoa, what the fuck, like that kind of thing. Like stuff just shows up and you're like, what the fuck is that? And then it leaves. Kind of like real animals do, Not as extensive. There aren't like giant worms that eat people's heads and shit like that, but there are, they do pay some attention to the wildlife, and it's plausible if you get rid of the square root law. It's plausible. The bad guy monsters are called skull crushers or something like that, or skull something, right? Those things are gnarly. The weird reptilian skull things that Kong has to fight, and then he has to fight one at the end. And the battle at the end is like, damn, like it's like biting and like blood and shit blowing up, and they're throwing each other against the walls, and he's wrestling it and punching it and all this other crap, and like hitting it with a tree, and you're like, whoa. And it's really, really well done, I think. It's between this one and the 2005 movie, the battle with the V-Rexes. Like, between this one and the end of this are like the best monster battles of all time, Really, really, damn. I put it up there with it, And it's going to be awesome because they lead right into the next Godzilla movie at the end credits. And it's like, damn, like somewhere inside of me there's an 8-year-old running around doing cartwheels, yelling for joy right now, right? Because it's like the movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And it just means that the next one, which is going to have like, Mothra and Rodan and King Ghidorah in it, is gonna hopefully, if it's as good as this one, then that's if they can keep it up, then that one will be cool, and then it's gonna be Godzilla versus King Kong, and I'm just gonna have a heart attack and die when that comes out. Anyway, I'm like totally fanboying all over this thing. It's definitely worth seeing. It's really well done. There's lots of little Easter eggs all over it. Homages to other Kong movies. Like where he fights an octopus, which is a homage to the original Godzilla versus King Kong, and then there's another part at the end where he's got like the monster in one hand and the girl in the other, and they're wrestling, and that's a homage to the 2005 Jackson thing. Like they made a Weta statue of that, and he takes the exact same position as that. I was like, that was pretty awesome. And there's even like there's lots of little references, and I don't know. So definitely, if you haven't had a chance yet, please go see it. This movie, you won't be disappointed. Right? Adios, folks.